So, we have iconic supervillains who we always love to read about, but just because these iconic villains already exist and do enough to enthrall us, it doesn't mean we can't make some room for new blood in the supervillain community. In fact, sometimes the story needs it. It's always good to have a new villain come in and shake things up or give us a mystery to solve. One of my favorite things. Today we'll take a look at some of those newer villains who made an impression from the last decade, as we count down the top 10 newest supervillains. If you love villains as much as we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to give this video a like, and be sure to stick around till the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10. Oblivion. Oblivion first made his appearance in Green Lantern New Guardians Annual Issue number 2. He was created after Kyle Rayner edited The Source. Oblivion embodies all of the darker emotions of Kyle Rayner, and he kind of has like a Venom vibe going on, which I dig. He ended up teleporting himself and Carol Ferris to Arizona, where he then created illusions of Rayner's friends and superhero colleagues. Rayner arrived and confronted Oblivion, urging him to fix the town in Arizona that he'd altered with illusions, but Oblivion of course refused. In the end, Kyle realized he had to merge with Oblivion in order to defeat him. However, his attempt to do so resulted in both Oblivion and himself becoming lost within the vastness of the Source. That's why you don't mess with the Source. Number 9. Red Tool. Red Tool made the cut because, while not a serious threat as a supervillain, he is just super entertaining. He's basically DC's ripoff of Marvel's Deadpool, who of course himself is a ripoff of DC's Deathstroke. Red Tool is a mercenary who fights solely with hardware tools and equipment. He was introduced in Harley Quinn's series and seems full-on obsessed with her there. He tattooed his phone number on her butt during their first meeting, wherein he also kidnapped her. Despite his obsession, however, and the two getting off on somewhat of the wrong foot, or maybe the odd foot really, the two eventually became good friends, with Red Tool's Wayne Wilkins even becoming a potential love interest for Harley. I also just love that all of his speech bubbles tend to be tools. It's cute. Bonus points for art. Number 8. The Inheritors. So I know not everyone loves the Inheritors as much as I do, but my love of Victorian style and vampires as well as alternate versions of Spidey meant that these villains, well, they were basically destined for me to love them. These energy vampires have plagued many different versions of spider people as they feed off of the energy of spider totems. The other awesome thing about them is they help to bring us Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon, which ultimately led to the development of the film version Into the Spider-Verse. And without them, we also wouldn't have the Web Warriors or any of the Spider Army. So yeah, you might not agree that they are terrifying and awesome, but either way, you have to agree that they are kind of important in developing the Spider-Verse itself. So respect. There's gonna be so many people being like, Amanda just loves Twilight vampires or something in the comments. I don't. Just FYI, in case you're wondering. Number 7. Kindred. Kindred was a new Spider-Man villain who first fully appeared in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, Issue 5, after being mentioned many years ago in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Issue 12. Not much has been revealed about the villain, which automatically makes them super intriguing to me. At first, it almost seemed like they could be an ally to Peter. Kindred was a human in life who was sent to hell and death and became a demon. They seem to have known Peter in life and affectionately referred to him as Pete. Kindred even kept an eye on MJ for Peter, but Peter had also had a vision of them harming her. Kindred later revealed that they had returned to get revenge on both Norman Osborn and Peter for causing pain to them in their life, but especially Norman. I mean, obviously it caused more pain. However, when they came upon Norman, he was not himself, he was stuck in his Cletus Cassidy persona, so Kindred spared him and simply inserted one of their centipedes into his brain through his ear to keep Osborn/Cletus from killing Spider-Man. Kindred's buying his time, waiting until, Norman Osborn is Norman Osborn again, which is fair, because he wants that revenge to be just on Norman Osborn, not this Cletus persona. Confusing. So all we know is that Kindred is vengeful and seems to have apparently mind-influencing centipedes. Number 6. Red Onslaught. Red Onslaught is a clone of the original Red Skull, Johannes Schmidt. This one managed to take things to a level of ridiculousness that even surprised me. We are talking soap opera levels here, people. Okay, here we go. After Professor X died, this Red Skull clone worked hard to get his hands on the dead telepath's brain. He gave himself a brain transplant, or at least a partial one, in order to harness Charles's old powers, because apparently that's how that works. This made Red Skull pretty powerful. He ended up using this power to turn Genosha into a concentration camp for mutants and Inhumans alike, which obviously royally pissed off Magneto. Magneto, furious, attacked Red Skull, but decided not to use his powers and give him a cleaner death by killing him naturally. naturally by smashing his skull with bricks, which, if we're talking about cleaning up after as in a cleaner death, that doesn't really sound that clean. This was overall a bad move as well, as it only unlocked a more powerful persona within Red Skull, known as Red Onslaught. The terror and hate that Red Onslaught unleashed set us up for the Axis event, as the only way to stop Red Onslaught was by Scarlet Witch flipping his psyche to give the small consciousness of Xavier that was still left in that brain more control. Number 5. Godspeed. This villain was introduced in Rebirth. August Hart was a witness to the event that gave Barry his speedster powers. He was also Barry's partner on the Force and was granted his own speedster powers as well, using them to get revenge on his brother's killers. When a speedstorm granted multiple civilians speed powers as well, August joined Barry in rounding them up. What Barry didn't know at the time was that August was actually Godspeed, a villain who was tracking down civilians with speed powers and draining them of their speed energy to make himself more powerful, and thereby killing those he siphoned speed from. In fact, it's this power of harnessing other speed energy that made him so dangerous as a villain. Number 4. Modok. Remember when Donald Trump made his way into the comic book world? He appeared in Spider-Gwen Annual number 1 in 2016 on Spider-Gwen's home of alternate Earth 65, where he became that Earth's version of terrifying yet hilarious villain, Modok. Pretty fitting, I think. Not only does Modok, which stands for Mental Organism Designed as America's King, make the list because of how topical he is, but he also makes our cut because he was one of the last creations revealed by Stan Lee, who thought it was fitting that the villain be defeated by Earth 65 Captain America, aka Samantha Wilson, who is both female and a person of color. Although Lee was not responsible for the villain's creation, he definitely got a kick out of this one. Modok was created by Jason Latour and Chris Visions. Number 3. Orcas. One of the biggest threats to mutant kind has recently appeared in the comics, although mutant leaders like X almost seem to be becoming somewhat eerily villainous themselves in a way. No side in the House of X series actually seems quite just, which I think is what I like so much about it. It all feels very gray area when it comes to the characters, despite the fact that their views are also very extreme. Still, if you are siding with the mutants, then Orcas is the enemy that we are talking about for this list. They are an organization comprised of many different agencies such as SHIELD, Strike, Sword, AIM, Armor, Hammer, Hydra, you know, just all the acronyms there. Oh, and Alpha Flight. Not an acronym, but still important. Their goal is to protect humanity from drastic events that could threaten the human population. One of their projects that we saw in House of X was the Mother Mold, a creation even more dangerous than a Master Mold. The Mother Mold learns and changes the mold of Sentinels it creates over time, learning as it creates and witnesses the outcome of those Sentinels it builds and sends out. While the X-Men defeated the Mother Mold, just the prospect of a team which is smart enough to build such tech is terrifying if you're a mutant. 3 Jokers. While we wait for this one to be released, these 3 mysterious villains gave us Batman fans one of the biggest gasp moments maybe ever. In Justice League issue 42 from 2015, when Batman asks the Mobius chair, which knows all, about the identity of the Joker, it gives him a strange answer, that there are actually 3 Jokers. What? We didn't even find out though what that answer was until 8 months after the question was asked as well. We just got to see Batman be like, what? And then we were left with that cliffhanger piece of information that there were 3 Jokers for like what feels like forever. Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok set out to work on a miniseries from DC's Black Label exploring this mystery titled Batman 3 Jokers. But this series has since had its expected release date pushed back and then back again. And now it's looking like we should probably see this book sometime this year in 2020. Hopefully it's worth the wait, and hopefully, please let it end up being canon. Still, prospects seem good for these 3 Jokers. I really just want to know who they are. It's very exciting. Number 1. Dark Carnage. Okay, so I know that Cletus has been a villain who has been around since the 1990s, but his latest resurrection and change has taken the supervillain to new heights, breathing new life into him and changing him into something beyond his more well-known alias as Carnage. Following the events of the Poison invasion, Cletus returned to Earth, literally plummeting out of the sky. As the atmosphere threatened to burn him up upon re-entry, the Carnage symbiote re-emerged, attempting to protect its host. However, it failed, and it seemed that Cassidy and Carnage had perished, until a Null-worshipping cult got its hands on his corpse and managed to bond Cletus with the ancient Grendel symbiote, aiming to turn him into a vessel for Null to return in. This set in motion the events of absolute carnage, putting in danger the lives of anyone who had ever bonded to a symbiote, or the corpses of those now deceased who had bonded to a symbiote, as Dark Carnage set out to consume their symbiote codices located in their spinal columns. Thanks so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. Who is your favorite new supervillain? Who is your favorite old supervillain? If you had your new supervillain and your old supervillain who are your favorites fight, who do you think would win? Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of comments, it's time to read comments from one of our previous videos, Top 10 Dumbest Powers That Beast Has. Alright, Keth Jones says, who wins in your own opinion, Bloodthirsty Beast or Classic Sabretooth? I think I have to go with Bloodthirsty Beast. Now the interesting thing about that is that he doesn't really, how can I put this? He doesn't really have a lot of control over himself, but it's like almost his complete lack of control that I think makes him so dangerous, and I feel like Sabretooth is more conscious even when he's being all crazy. So yes. Puffed Mason comments, why she look like Black Widow? I don't know, this is just how I look, and some people think I look like Black Widow, and I take that as a compliment because I'm assuming then that means you think I look like ScarJo, who's beautiful, so yeah, I don't know. Or I'm secretly Black Widow, but shh, don't tell anyone because then I'm a spy. And that's all the time we have for comments today. If you would like to have your thoughts and words and feels shouted out in a future video, please comment below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube.